Tens of thousands of people have been paying their last respect to former Pope Benedict XVI at the lying-in state in the Vatican. He died on New Year's Eve at the age of 95, almost a decade after he stood down because of ill health. Pope Francis will preside over the funeral tomorrow. As dawn broke over the Vatican, a queue had already formed at the edge of St. Peter's Basilica. We'll now join Rise News Chief Correspondent John Cookson live in Vatican City in a moment. But first, here's a report from St. Peter's.
Good morning from St. Peter's here in Vatican City, where people are already lining up in their thousands for the final day of lying in state of the late Pope Benedict's body. Later, Pope Benedict will be placed inside a wooden coffin ready for tomorrow's funeral. He was a history maker in many ways. He was the first German to be elected Pope in 1,000 years, the first Pope to resign in office in 600 years, and the first Pope to have his funeral conducted by a present Pope, Pope Francis. We've just been getting some detail about tomorrow's funeral. It will be a Requiem Mass beginning at 9:30 a.m. tomorrow morning. That's local time and also Nigeria time. One of the readings will be from the Gospel according to St. Luke, where Jesus is on the cross and Jesus allegedly says, "Father, into your hands I commend my spirit," which is very similar to the alleged last words of the former Pope Benedict, who allegedly said on his deathbed, "Jesus, I love you." The coffin will be placed after the funeral service. The coffin will be placed into a zinc-lined coffin and then into a box and placed beneath the Basilica of St. Peter's in the grotto there, the former resting place of another Pope, Pope John Paul II. It's not known how many people will travel to see the funeral tomorrow. The last time Pope's funeral was held, it was in 2005. That was John Paul II, and 4 million people turned up to pay their respects. John Cookson, Arise News, St. Peter's Square, Vatican City.
So joining us now live from the Vatican City's Arise Chief Correspondent, John Cookson. John, great to have you this morning. What a day where we're burying Pope Benedict XVI, Joseph Ratzinger. He had a storied past, you know. Could we go into all of that now? His movement with the Nazis and his emergence on the scene, giving his life to Christ again, and his historical antecedents. Let's start from his Nazi past.
Hi, good morning, guys. Great to see you. His Nazi past. Well, I'm not so sure it was a Nazi past. Look, he was born of course, in a different age. Hitler was in power. He did join the Hitler Youth when he was 17, but every kid that age had to join the Hitler Youth. There was no choice in that. And his father was a local policeman, a well-regarded policeman, and the family were never members of the Nazi Party, although it has to be said that Ratzinger, as he was then known, Joseph Ratzinger, in Bavaria in Germany, did join the Hitler Youth. But, you know, he had no choice in that, as did millions of other young men and women in Hitler's day. So I'm not so sure it's right to talk about his Nazi past. I think that's completely inaccurate. He was born in a different age and was forced to join the Hitler Youth, but never actually joined the Nazi Party.
All right, thank you, John. I'd like you to just share with us the mood in the Vatican City as we count down to the funeral mass of Pope Benedict XVI, Pope Emeritus Benedict XVI. Particularly, who are the guests being expected, what preparations are on ground in the Vatican City, and just to give us a sense.
Yeah, I just got back from St. Peter's Square, which is about 500 meters from where I'm sitting now. I mean, there's a tremendous mood of anticipation. It's neither somber nor joyous. People are just lining up quietly. I think the line to see the body was about almost a kilometre long this morning, just before 7 when doors opened, and tens of thousands of people have already filed past. Estimates so far 60 or 70,000 people, and there'll be surely another 60,000 today before the doors to St. Peter's close at 7 o'clock tonight local time and Nigerian time. To get ready for the funeral tomorrow. As far as the guest list is concerned, it's uncertain who will actually turn up. Former Pope was, of course, not only the Pope of the Catholic faith, but he was also a former head of state of the Vatican. And a number of world leaders will arrive, but we're uncertain who that will include. So far, certainly the presidents of Germany and Italy will be, but not President Biden, for example. America will be represented by the ambassador to the Vatican, the US ambassador to the Vatican. Which royals from the British royal family will attend? We'll still wait to hear. The final guest list hasn't been drawn up, and it's very much open to speculation as to which world leaders will attend. But certainly, short time ago when I was down there was a big mood of anticipation, grateful for the life of this man, a former theologian, a towering figure, people say, in theology. He was a bookish man. He spoke seven languages. He was a conservative Catholic, of course. We know that. Things are changing slightly under Pope Francis. And his resignation was, of course, controversial all those years ago. He didn't complete a decade as Pope before he resigned due to ill health. So certainly a sense here in Vatican of a page of history turning today.
Well, John, two quick things. One, what will you consider to be Pope Benedict XVI's major legacy, considering the fact that he was quite a controversial pope? And some of those controversies have shown up in the course of these funeral rites. And then, what would the funeral look like? That's the second question. Considering the fact that in the funeral rites of Catholic pontiffs, running to almost 400 pages, a lot of traditions are defined. Apart from the fact that this will be the first time a pope in modern history will be presiding over the funeral of a former pope, what are those key traditions that we're likely to see during the funeral, if we already have an idea?
Yes, we do know things will unfold properly tomorrow, and we'll say exactly what's going to happen, because very few details have been released about the funeral. But we know already that it will be a relatively simple affair, not like the mass for John Paul II, who was indeed a hard act to follow by Pope Benedict. It will be a very simple ceremony as far as funerals for popes go. As for his legacies, we've already discussed some of the downsides of Pope Benedict's time in office. There were some missteps, it has to be said, in this modern age. He called gay marriage a threat to humanity. In Cameroon, on a visit to Cameroon, he said that condoms weren't the answer to Africa's AIDS problem. And he upset Muslims throughout the world, did Pope Benedict, by quoting a Byzantine emperor saying that the only contribution that Muhammad made to world religion was evil and humane. These were massive missteps by a pope who was out of touch, I think, with current thinking. He backtracked on all of that in the months and the years that followed. But that, I think, on the day before his funeral, to emphasize that, I think is unfair on late Pope Benedict. I think his contribution to the Catholic faith was huge. He reintroduced Latin Mass for Catholics, and he was dearly loved by the conservative wing of the Catholic faith. He opposed abortion very strongly. He was a conservative on euthanasia. He abhorred euthanasia, and he was very much in agreement with the celibacy of priests. So I think on balance, and I'm not a Catholic myself, but as an objective observer, I would say that on balance, his contribution to the Catholic faith, the stability that he brought to the Catholic faith, outweighs some of the missteps that he made and he backtracked on later in his life.
Well, thank you, John. Above everything else, he was also regarded as a Green Pope because of his support for environmentalism. Thank you very much.
And let's not also forget, John, that he admitted to providing false information at the German inquiry into sexual abuse. Let's not also forget that part of those missteps you talked about. The leader of Pan-Nigerian Niger Delta Forum, Edwin Clark, has endorsed Labour Party's Peter Obi for president. The elder statesman explained that Obi has shown commitment to resolve challenges in the Niger Delta region. Clark said it was the turn of the South to produce an ex-president after 8 years of President Muhammadu Buhari, who is a northerner. Clark's endorsement comes a few days after former President Olusegun Obasanjo also endorsed Obi. And also Benue State Governor Samuel Otom has backed former President Olusegun Obasanjo's endorsement of Labour Party's Peter Obi for presidential election. Otom says that he would have left Obi's campaign across the country if he is not a member of the People's Democratic Party. Otom says he recommends Peter Obi as the man who has the capacity to tackle the economic security and other challenges facing the country. Ayo, you're taking this.
Oh, interesting. And we did expect this, didn't we, Rufai, in terms of the days and weeks leading to March to February 25 being very interesting. This is the much anticipated January, particularly from Governor Nyesom Wike and the G5 governors. And so first of all, let me just say that Mr. Edwin Clark saying that he was endorsing Peter Obi in the spirit of fairness doesn't come much as a surprise, as a number of South leaders have said that it is only fair to bring the presidency to the South, since we've been under the tenure of a Northern president for the last 8 years this year. But let me move to the governor of Benue State's comments and endorsement. So first of all, the year opened up with former President Olusegun Obasanjo writing a love letter, as I like to refer to it, to Nigerians, young Nigerians in particular, and the international community, fully and endorsing the candidate of the Labour Party, Mr. Peter Obi. And now following that, Mr. Edwin Clark, Chief Edwin Clark, and now Governor Samuel Ortom. What Governor Ortom has said is that he believes that Mr. Peter Obi is the solution to Nigeria's economic, security challenges and other challenges. He also, as with former President Olusegun Obasanjo, gave quite a poor report. I could use stronger terms, but for the sake of television, I'll just say a very poor report to the current government, saying that they tackled security very poorly, the economy is in very poor situation, and therefore we need a new leader who can move Nigeria to the promised land, well, at least Nigeria forward, paraphrasing now. Now, when you listen to Governor Samuel Ortom, who is a member of the G5 governors, made up of Governor Nyesom Wike of Rivers State, Governor Ifeanyi Egwayin, Governor Okezie Ekpeazu, Governor Seyi Makinde, and himself, you begin to wonder what the implication is. Remember, last week we had brought the reports that the G5 governors had gone to London, and that following their meeting in London, they were perhaps going to finally state who they were going to be supporting against their own party's presidential candidate, Waziri Atiku Abubakar. Now that Governor Samuel Ortom has come out to say that he will be supporting Mr. Peter Obi, it will be interesting to see if this aligns with the views of the rest of the G5 governors. And in the event that it doesn't, then you begin to wonder if indeed the rumors that the fabric is beginning to tear apart in this coalition is true. And then, of course, what the PDP's response will be. Remember, again, the PDP had said they were going to sanction the G5 governors if they do come out to support a contrary candidate to their own party's candidate. And they didn't state clearly, but there were things around suspension, even expulsion, even though they said later on that they might not go toe that line so that it doesn't have consequences. It would be wonderful to see in the next few hours or perhaps days what the response of the PDP to his recommendation will be.
Dr. Batu?
Okay. The endorsements keep coming in for Mr. Peter Obi, presidential candidate of the Labour Party, and his running mate, Dati. First, it was President Olusegun Obasanjo, just as the year was ending, who endorsed Peter Obi. Since then, we have had Governor Samuel Ortom of Benue State also saying he agrees in total with President Olusegun Obasanjo. There's also a report that former President, General Ibrahim Babangida, IBB, has also endorsed Peter Obi. And then yesterday, you have this 4-page statement by Chief Ike Clark, leader of the Pan-Niger Delta Forum and one of the prominent leaders in southern Nigeria. What are they all saying in all these statements? They are saying that they believe that Peter Obi has the character, the exposure, the experience, the vision to transform Nigeria. Well, Peter Obi himself says he wants to move Nigeria from consumption to production. But if you look at the various statements, President Obasanjo says he has an edge over the others because the other ones either think they are, seeking the presidency of Nigeria out of a sense of entitlement or because they think they've been there before. But Peter Obi is bringing something new which could help to transform the country, particularly, as Obasanjo pointed out, in the best interests of young Nigerians who may advise to go out on election day in droves and make an informed choice. Now, if you look at Chief Ike Clark's statement, he talked about Peter Obi's commitment to the environment, which is a major issue in the South Side. He talks about his commitment to education and investing more in the education of young Nigerians. More importantly, he says that the emergence of Peter Obi would amount to ensuring equity and justice and reaffirming clearly that Nigeria does not belong to one group or one region, and that, look, this is something that is, meant for everybody. However, I've just seen a note now saying that General Ibrahim Babangida has denied that he endorsed Peter Obi, that what was put out was from a fake
account.
Account titled at General Ibro. I think that fake account was. But in any case, there have been other people who have endorsed, Peter Obi, and it is significant that this is the case. It points to one thing, which is a major thing, that the impact, the continuing impact of the presidential bid of Peter Obi, the strength of that impact is what is illustrated. But the point has been made variously that all these persons who have given this endorsement, they only have one vote in any case. And Chief Ike Clark pointed out clearly that on February 25, he is going to vote for Peter Obi. But the endorsement, the question is, this endorsement, because these are influential persons, could translate into some advantage. And which is why it's not surprising that the Deputy National Publicity Secretary of the PDP, Malam Abdullahi, has said, in fact, the kind of endorsement that Peter Obi continues to receive is a strong reason why the PDP needs to put his house in order, because he seems to be gaining ground. Yesterday, there was a meeting, a pre-Atiku rally meeting in Ibadan. It wasn't attended by the supporters of Seyi Makinde. Seyi Makinde himself was not there. Former Minister Jumoke Akinjide was there. Former Deputy Governor Chief Bolarumi was there. Elder Wole Oyelese, I think, was also there. Other chieftains were there, but the Seyi Makinde people boycotted the event. So Abdullahi is saying that is a strong signal to the PDP that this game requires greater creativity and unity within their own fold. And then we have Governor Tom in Benue State, who barely stopped short of announcing that he will vote for Peter Obi, but he says Peter Obi has the right qualities, okay? But he says he's in the PDP, which means, yes, he admires Peter Obi, but maybe he's waiting for the G5, the integrity group, to come forward with the statement that they promised that they will make in January before he now makes his position very clear as to where he will vote. But in any case, we live in interesting times, and those times will get more interesting.
Those times definitely will get more interesting. One thing is certain. The same campaign of Peter Obi that some people said were 5 people tweeting in a room has gathered so much momentum now, and the endorsement has started to come in. Endorsements mean a lot in political season. If it didn't mean a lot, people will not react to the endorsements. Hence, some people try to get endorsements. Even, let's not forget that Afenifere is broken down the middle now because of endorsements. Baya Adebajo endorsed Peter Obi, and then another Fashion endorsed Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu. So endorsements are important. And that's why when politicians try to undermine endorsements and say it doesn't mean anything, deep inside, in local parlance, it pains them when people get endorsed. You cannot deny the fact that this movement from Peter Obi has also, found favor with the likes of Samuel Ortom, where Peter Obi had visited many times in Benue State. It has also found favor with Chief Olusegun Obasanjo, which I hear that they even had a meeting with some Labour Party stakeholders recently again. But how would all of this play? The most important people in all of this is you, the Nigerian people. Have you gotten your PVC to be able to vote? And what are you voting on? You have to vote based on the issues. There are so many issues on ground. As we speak today, the president repeated yesterday again that he's trying so hard to beg the National Assembly to securitize Ways and Means, which is 22 trillion, at variance with the CBN Act. In fact, he even put a cherry on it by saying that if they don't securitize it, we'll have to pay 1.8 trillion in interest. Whoever emerges the president of Nigeria has issues, has problems to solve already. It's not going to be an easy ride. And that's why Nigerians must open their eyes and vote for the best and most competent candidates. It has to be said. Secondly, it also has to be stated that INEC must do everything possible to ensure people get their PVCs. There have been a lot of complaints of segregation as regards PVCs, and INEC must stand up. January is a critical month. People must get their PVCs so that they are able to vote. But we have problems of ground, just like inflation. MPR might increase. It is difficult doing businesses in Nigeria. The economy is an all-time low, but I see prospect and possibilities. And that's why Nigeria is now looking beyond the politics. And whoever becomes president, we must all come together and support that person, because these issues has to be solved. And good one clarification there by Dr. Abati as regards General Babangida. It has to be said, please, journalists should be careful of parody accounts this season. That was reported from a parody account, and a national daily, in fact, did carry the story from a parody account. That's even the more shocking part as regards General Babangida's endorsement. Let's be careful of parody accounts, especially. Thank you so much.